Great to meet up today and see you on the panel here at IMN in Denver. So obviously RangeWater, you are growing. What's most exciting? What are you seeing here in the Mountain States specifically? We'll start with Denver. What are you seeing in Denver and the surrounding markets for you at RangeWater?
Yeah, so we've been an active developer in Denver. We have 3 assets operating here today. One just outside of downtown, Ironworks on Fox. We have Lupine at Longmont, and then we have the Armory in Boulder. So we're really optimistic on Denver and excited to operate here and to continue to develop here. We've got deals in the pipeline, both third party and new development deals. And we just think, even though it's been a hard area to operate in, we've really found that niche of just understanding, through a hospitality focus and through thinking like an owner and finding creative ways to drive traffic and, bring in potential tenants and show them the value that we can provide at their home, that we'll continue to see that growth. And as the story continues to improve, the rent growth and the value in the assets as well will continue to move in a positive direction.
It's key. I talk to so many people who've been in the business like yourself over cycles. And, at the end of the day, there's tough times and there's good times. And you have to be able to see through those times and have a great strategy and plan. I think one of the things I heard from you earlier is culture. You have a really strong culture, it sounds like. How do you think about that as you cover a lot of the country? You're traveling probably a lot. Do you see, something special here when you're in Denver, going to the sites, because you get to work with investors and development teams and on-site staff and operations? Is there something that maybe stands out about Denver that you really like here?
Yeah, I think it's always about connecting with people in what we do. And I can shout out Ironworks on Fox yesterday. I dropped in. They haven't seen me in a while. Some of the team hasn't met me yet. Our leasing agent jumped up and greeted me with a big smile and got to know me right away. And I think that just really is part of our culture and who we are. We believe in extreme hospitality, and you can see it when you interact with our teams.
You all have built an incredible brand that traverses now nationally. How many markets are you in roughly nationwide?
We're in 14 states.
14 states.
So incredible. We have a big footprint. We're in a lot of markets and a lot of cities throughout the country. Right. And so I think one of the challenges, when you're going from a firm, in one state, which is what we were in 2006 when we launched, to where we stand today, is how do you keep that, culture alive across the country. And we just have amazing leadership that is very passionate about, putting that into place and making sure that everyone's getting that same experience.
A hot topic, especially here in Denver, you have multifamily, traditional multifamily, and different types of properties, but you also have BTR. And it sounds like that's a space you all are moving into. Is there something, that why BTR fits so well into the playbook for multifamily? Is there something you're seeing?
Yeah, so we got into BTR in 2019. We were kind of early into the space. And I think that in purpose-built BTR, there were a lot of lessons to learn. So we learned some the hard way, and I think we've really built a great platform for that resident as well. And, one of the things we saw from COVID is people did migrate outward, and I think there's still a drive for that. But also, affordability is a factor. It's a lot more difficult to buy today. So you see elder millennials or maybe empty nesters who don't want all the headaches that come with owning a home anymore, and they're migrating into the BTR space. And so being able to provide that for them and a place for them to call home has been a fun journey for us.
I know for me, I wouldn't want to live per se with 3 kids in a high rise. I want to have that yard. So BTR makes a lot of sense. And I'm hearing so many people who are empty nesters who are selling their homes and wanting to rent. And it gives them that flexibility. They don't have to worry as much about the yard and the other types of things. So it's interesting. You hit on hospitality earlier, and I think that's such an interesting thing. Having that idea of, like you said, coming on site, and with AI, we talked earlier, so much discussion about AI in multifamily. How do teams separate themselves in a hospitality manner? Are you studying, at RangeWater, are you studying other types of industries like hotels and then bringing those kind of best practices over? And then with all the automation happening, is that something you're focused on?
Yeah, I would say in terms of studying other industries, it's more about investment. So we added a director of hospitality, Javier Baskin, to our team a couple years back. And his entire focus was really creating this hospitality training and framework that can be disseminated down to all the site teams so that everyone is extremely hospitality focused. And, so that you can go to a multifamily deal and have this great experience, you can go to a BTR deal and have this great experience, but it's also about connecting with the resident and meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
Because a BTR renter might have different needs or things they get excited about. And every property we also think has a story. And so really speaking to that resident and their story and creating this experience that's unique to them and memorable for them is important in what we do.
And every community has a story, every team has a story. We talked a little bit about creativity. So I think, one of the things is I'd love to hear, you talked about optimism, creativity, new adventures, new partners here being made at IMN. What's exciting for you across these markets in your scene?
Yeah, I think, in business development, growing partnerships and relationships is what I do every day. So I think that's what I get most excited about, is getting to meet, new groups and understand, what are their needs, what are their business plans, how can we meet them where they're at and help them accomplish their goals. And I think that's something that I also love about RangeWater is, we really think like an owner. It's at the core of who we are and how we got started back in 2006 was as a merchant developer. And so our teams think at that level. How can I increase the value of the asset? How can I help my client, meet their goals? And so thinking about managing real estate in such a critical and strategic way, it just makes the job more fun.
Well, and that's got to be hard because understanding the changing economics right now, especially with capital, interest rates, a lot of people thought they were going to go down, they're going up.
Yeah.
And so it can be very demanding on the operation side of your clients. I'm sure you have to be very creative. You have to realign expectations. And one of the key things I think I hear a lot about is communication. You talked about the director of hospitality.
Yeah.
So are there a lot of playbooks you have, and is that something that you really stress is clear lines of communication? And is there something that you all do differently? To make sure that happens, whether it's with your residents and your investors?
One of the pillars that we feel makes us so successful is we're so convicted in our partnerships. And so we are going to share the news if it's hard to hear or if it's great to hear, and celebrate the wins and the challenges together and work with that partner to move through those together while still achieving, as much as we possibly can and finding those successes for their investment. I think that's what it really comes down to, and being able to have our teams understand that. So it's not just lying with a managing director or a director or even just the regional. Our managers and our service managers are working together on financial calls to get creative and find ways to make the asset successful even in hard times.
I think, as you talk about good conversations, and you hear a lot of good from a lot of people who want to make promises and whatnot, but I think having those difficult conversations up front, consistently. I think one of the things I'd love to ask you about too is, when you're thinking about different markets to work within. So here you've got Boulder, not too far away. I need to get up there. As you're thinking about these markets and having the right teams, how do you think about hiring? Is there a secret that you have around hiring or culture or anything maybe you've learned on leadership that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think the culture is so important. I think there were a lot of changes in the multifamily industry that happened very fast over the past few years, and I think we kind of right-sized in the payroll area, because those are critical positions, and we want to make sure that our people are making the salary that reflects, the work that goes into the asset. So I think in recruiting, and I think across our industry, we've really seen the right sizing in the salary place, but people don't just stay for a salary. So being able to create an area, a place of opportunity, knowing that growth is so important to us, but growing right, and that we're going to grow our people right and give them the investment and the tools that they need to be successful, and knowing that they have that support vertical that's invested in them beyond just their direct supervisor's level, I think really resonates well with our teams and keeps them bought in and staying with us.
Yeah, something else you talked about, obviously, different parts of the country, and real estate is so location driven, right? You talked a little bit about Denver. Maybe you could share a little bit. I know you talked about some developments going on in Tampa and some work down there. Is there something that maybe stands out that you're either seeing that's very different from markets like Denver to Tampa or Atlanta? Or is there actually something that maybe ties them together that you're seeing that's consistent across these markets? Yeah,
I would say it's in any major MSA, it's really about understanding the asset and the property story, and I think that's when you can really stand out, is in an area that's heavily supplied, a potential resident is looking at a lot of new development. So how do you stand out? And I think that's getting convicted in the property story, getting convicted in the experience, and you're kind of selling that holistically instead of a beautiful kitchen. We all have beautiful kitchens.
Yeah.
We have these
We all
beautiful
have wow fridges.
We all
right?
have wow fridges, yeah. And so, being able to provide that experience, at the end of the day, the resident, future resident, the prospect is renting from the person they connected with and the story of the property they connected with where that experience was seamless. And so I think that is one of the most important things that I like to see tied across different MSAs and where we found success.
I think something else, obviously the hottest topic right now, AI.
Yeah.
We hit on that a little bit earlier of AI and different use cases, and one of the key ones that stats are all over the place about leasing up and marketing and the challenges there, but the opportunities that exist, right? If you can, as you said, touch the resident, engage them, and actually lock them in and get them to move to your community because they have more opportunities, more options than ever. I think some of the stats they shared about Denver, record number of absorption and new units happening in a lot of cities. So what are you seeing in AI, and how are you thinking, in the AI world right now? Is it more on the marketing side? Is it more on the internal side? Maybe is there something that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think, we lean heavily into it on the leasing side, just because it's a natural, very easy to implement tool. And I think we've seen a lot of success in the Denver market utilizing that, but what we've learned is you can't set and forget AI.
Yeah.
There's still that human element that's so critical, and so we really use the AI to make sure that in a world where an immediate response is so important, that we're touching the resident, we're staying in consistent communication, but we're also tied into that AI and we are having organic conversations as well. And so I know I keep coming back to Ironworks on Fox, but we're in Denver and they've seen success with that where they don't have a lot of drive-by traffic because they're a little off the beaten path. They're not highly visible. Where we would normally expect to see at least 15% of your traffic is drive-by, we're less than 5 at Ironworks. And so AI has helped us to get that first touch on the resident, but then convert the digital touches, and 45% of those are converting to tours.
Wow.
And our benchmark is 25%. From a national standpoint, it varies from geography, but 25% is the benchmark, and we're converting over 45.
Wow.
And so that's bringing in more traffic, giving us a greater ability to close and really maximize on that leasing velocity.
It's huge. Especially right now in the competitive landscape. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I love Atlanta. I live there, and a market I care about. You obviously have a big office there. Is there anything that you're seeing maybe in Atlanta, or maybe about the team? When you get back, is there anything you love about Atlanta? Getting out there.
Yeah, Atlanta's our home base,
Yeah.
so I get out there quite a bit, and we have a large presence in Atlanta because it's where we started. I'm always excited to get back there and visit the home office, visit with our teams, see the real estate. Both RangeWater and our client partners are doing a lot of exciting developments there. There's been some really interesting acquisitions that happen there. It's just a very active market. I know it's been a hard one as well with the supply story and the fraud story, but I think much like Denver, there's hope on the horizon and things are moving in the right direction. And because of the resources we've had there, our story in Atlanta has been overly positive. We, weren't hit tremendously hard by some of the fraud and bad debt story. We tried to be very proactive in implementing the right tools to mitigate those issues. And so we're still very, excited about Atlanta and the story and what we can accomplish there.
I'm very long-term on the story. I live there, love it. I got to say too, they just had reported record absorption of 15,000 units already this year.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But new development has dropped off a cliff. So we need more people like RangeWater and others who are taking the risk to develop and build more housing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. I'd like to share a little bit about where where you're from and the state and the market you're in. Is there anything that stands out? Maybe your favorite food, and any great things happening there, and what you're most excited about?
Yeah, where I'm originally from is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So
Nice.
I give Oklahoma a shout out, which you may or may not detect an accent.
Okay.
You never know.
No, I didn't.
Depends on the day.
Okay.
So that's where I'm originally from. I started my career in property management in Florida. I've been with RangeWater for 11 years, and with them I've lived in Florida, Virginia, Utah, and today Arizona.
Okay, awesome.
I am excited to be back in Arizona where there's great Mexican food, because in Oklahoma there was always great Mexican food. So we're excited about Arizona. We have a large portfolio there. It's exciting to be surrounded by our teams. We have great corporate presence there, as well as more than 10 assets operating in the valley, and then we've got one up in Flagstaff. So it's just nice to be surrounded by a big group.
When Erica McLaughlin speaking today
Yes.
as an expert, and she is very well respected. I know she's very also, you may as well, but she's very involved in the associations.
Yes.
So always important to do that. One of the things actually in your point about stories and culture, I don't know the name of it, but man, in Scottsdale or Phoenix, there was an amazing church that serves tacos. I can't think of the name of it, but it was amazing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but as soon as you find out, you have to share it with me.
I'll have to look it up. It's on my calendar, but it was such a cool, you walk into it's an old church.
Oh, I do know that's the Mission. It is my favorite restaurant. It's my husband and I. I mean, we've eaten there more times than I care to admit. We've only been back for we've only been in Arizona for 30 days. So, I think
that's the thing.
It's wonderful.
Great neighborhoods, great communities. If you have great local businesses that are unique too, like great coffee shops, great taco shops, great teams, you remember that.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about the Mission. You can kind of tie it to property management. They have a great story. It's in an old mission. It's in an old church, and you walk in and it has that vibe, that story. The food is great. It's a very full circle kind of moment when you go there. And I think when you can deliver that in property management as well, it's like this wow moment, and you're like, I have to live here. And that's what we hope to deliver to our future residents.
I'll be down there again soon when the weather's a little bit cooler. So I'm excited to be back down there. I think another IMN actually in just a couple months.
In December. IMN in Scottsdale.
It's a great event. Our audience should make sure they're there. I want to tie it up with, what can we help you with? Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
So RangeWater's really excited about the future and growth and our future partnerships. And I think a big part of that is always going to be, finding the right people. We're excited to recruit and add to our team those, who are like-minded, and really excited about providing, an exceptional experience and a hospitality-centric experience, and helping us deliver that in everything we do.
Awesome. Well, I wish you the best on continued growth. You all are, growing by leaps and bounds. And thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome.